For all you Groundhoppers out there, this podcast is for you. This is the FANA Fan Podcast, and I'm Topliss, and for all you Groundhoppers out there, this podcast is for you. A new season is upon us, and what a start we've got for season 4. We've got Mr. 7,000 ground man. It's Dave. How are you, mate?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah.
Good.
Been
Thank
suffering in the cold weather, but I'm sure we all have.
Yes, absolutely, mate. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for coming on. I know this is one that a lot of people are going to want to see. This one, I'm sure you have some great stories for us. So, Dave Woodings from Burton on Trent. How did you get into football, mate? How did it start?
Well, football, I was always interested, even as a little kid. I never any good playing it, but my dad was really into football, and he took me to my first match, Derby against Stockport in the old 3rd Division North, Christmas 1955, when I was 7. And, I went with him quite a few times after that. And for a few years, I watched Derby and, on the recommendation of a mate at school, Forest as well, without really being sort of desperately a fan of either.
Yeah. Derby and Forest, yeah. It's a big hatred between the two clubs.
Yeah. Well, I never really got into that, no.
No. Did you? So what were you like as a player then? You said you weren't very good. Can you describe?
Well, 3 yards out, I was lethal, but other than that, I was useless. The height of my footballing career was when I was at university. I went to watch the Hall of Residence team who were sitting pretty at the top of the league. So I thought I ought to go and watch them. And I got a tap on the shoulder about 5 or 6 minutes before kick-off. Get in the car quick, from the team captain. I said, why? He said, you've got to get your boots, you're playing. So another guy hadn't turned up. So I said, well, as long as you put me up front, which he duly did, and I scored after 90 seconds and then got another one midway through the first half. And they kept me in for the rest of the season just as the resident goal hanger. So that was the height of my football career. No, I couldn't tackle a paper bag,
I couldn't tackle a paper bag. I'm going to use that next time.
Yeah.
So did you play any more teams for that team? Any more games for that team? Sorry.
Well, I say just to the end of that season, yeah, and then a lot of the good players left. We started the next season, but really, I wasn't needed because they weren't doing very well. So, I concentrated on my table tennis, which is what I played most of the time at university.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Where did you go at university?
Bristol.
Okay. Did you
ever
watch any of the? Did you watch City or Rovers while you were down there at all?
Both, actually, yeah, from time to time. Not a huge amount because some Saturdays we'd have university table tennis matches, But I've watched both of them again. I suppose I tentatively started groundhopping. I had a couple of trips into Wales to Newport, Cardiff, Swansea, and did Swindon. I never got round to Exeter, Plymouth and Torquay, which were a long way to go later on. But I never did any non-league in those days.
Just the 92?
Yeah, which I finished in 75 at Norwich.
Yeah, Norwich, the last one. Interesting.
Yeah.
It was a funny one, isn't it? Yeah, where the finisher is, isn't it? Yeah. But I suppose that's how we all start, isn't it? We want to do the 92 club and then we run out.
Yeah, I think the modern groundhoppers don't. They sort of start with everything anyway. But of course, in my younger days, I'm nostalgia with this. Other than sort of what you now call the leading 2 or 3 non-league divisions, there just weren't clubs with lights or anything, So the scope was less. There was no information. Unless you actually lived somewhere there was a non-league team, you didn't really get to know or interested. I mean, I think my first sort of dabbles in non-league was when I lived in St Helens, and there were a few very good Northern Prem teams around there, particularly Wigan Athletic. And I think the one that really told me non-league, yes, this is for me, I went on a summer Saturday. It was a Northern Prem in those days. They started a week earlier than everything else, and I went to Northwich Vicks, and it was a lovely sunny afternoon. Sat sunning myself on the bank by the old stand. This is at the drill field, and thought, this is for me. No hassle getting in. Reasonable crowd, reasonable standard of football, and once I'd finished the league, really, I got into non-league from there. And then gradually, I say modern groundhoppers, I don't think do it this way, gradually drop down levels,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I personally started off wanting to do the 92 club, but I'm still only halfway there to this day.
Yeah.
Because obviously, when we can't get to a 92 ground, because they are scarce in terms of there's not as many of them as there are non-league. You go to a non-league one, and
well,
in
that's it.
my case, you love it.
Yeah. I say in those days, certainly until I started with the Northern Prem, it never really occurred to me to look at non-league. No.
No.
But I say these days there's so much more information available. You've got Football Traveller, you've got Footballogy, you've got Soccerway, you've got all sorts,
Yeah.
and everything on the internet. It's just so much easier to find out what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know you mentioned non-league. What's your opinion on Sunday League?
Sunday League, I'm actually quite surprised. I've only really started looking at it locally last 2 or 3 years, mainly when I thought I was going to be not very mobile because I've had 2 knee operations.
Yeah.
And I've been very pleasantly surprised, not at the facilities. I mean, they're basically just pitches, most of them, but at the standard of football is better than I expected. And also very few, I thought there'd be a load of fights and a load of people turning up with a hangover from the night before. And you don't really get that. There's one or two who perhaps have eaten most of the pies, but other than that, it's surprisingly reasonable standard. And of course, there's different venues to go to.
Yeah.
So yes, I've taken a little bit of stick from a couple of people overdoing it, but some of it's as good as the standard I watch on Saturdays, because I get accused of scraping the barrel some of the leagues I go to on Saturdays.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, but in terms of Sunday League, there are some hidden gems out there. I mean, I'll give you a few. Frechfield, remember there? Burley FC now play on it. They've got a little stand at the corner of their ground and a view from the top
I did
bar.
Frechfield on a Saturday.
Yeah.
When they were in the Sheffield Senior, because they were, one of the top teams at that time. In fact, I think they might have played Northern Counties East for a year or two.
Yeah. I know it is a former Saturday ground. That's
Well, that's it. That's where you get one or two gems. There's one near me actually, Blackwell Miners Welfare.
Yeah, I was going to mention them. Brilliant ground.
There's a Sunday team revived there. I mean, the interesting thing about that place, which a lot of people don't know, is somewhere on that site, I'm not sure exactly where the football pitch is, there was a world record set in 1911. I think it's 11, it might be 10. It's certainly 110 plus years ago. And that was the world record 9th wicket partnership at cricket. Okay. And it's never been beaten. Yeah, wow. Amazing. One of the few records Derbyshire have got.
Yeah.
Cricket-wise, if you follow Derbyshire, you've got to be a masochist.
Yeah, I can imagine, yeah. But Queen's United in West Melton, South Yorkshire near Rotherham, there's another one. A very nice setup.
I've been there for a cup final, actually. Yeah.
Was it that cup final when was it Dog and Daisy won 3-0?
It was certainly Dog Daisy. I can't remember if it was 3-0. Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, I must have walked past you that night because me and Jack were there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, and then you've got the old Carvale United ground, which is now Walker's Wanderers in the Chesterfield Sunday League, with the beautiful view of Bowles-over Castle.
Well, actually been there yet. No, I'm waiting till Chris Roberts refs there.
Who, sorry?
Chris Roberts.
Okay, yeah. You never saw it with the old...
30 years after retirement, he started up again. And he and his mate have been doing, they've been putting some of their match fees to local hospice. And, they persuade people like me to stick a bit in their tin as well. So, they're doing a fantastic job. Yeah.
Good stuff. You never saw the old Carvale stand at Carvale United?
No.
Wow.
No. I missed that one.
Yeah, we've all missed some, though, haven't we, I suppose? So, how did it start with groundhopping for you then?
Well, I say
apart from the 92.
I think I was beginning to get into it when I finished the 92. I mean, to finish the 92, I to start with lived in Derby, then moved to Bristol, and done quite a few away games with Derby and Forest at various times. So almost without trying, I found I'd done about 50 grounds, heard about the 92, and thought, oh, I'll have a go at finishing it.
Yeah.
And I'd got the job in Northampton in 73, and I was still living in St Helens at the time. And I thought, oh my God, I need working. So I rushed up there in about October 73 just to go and do that. And funny enough, I went back there on Boxing Day this year. It was just like doing a new ground, a real breath of fresh air. I mean, it's a fantastic old ground. It's just a shame they've gone down as low as they have.
I know.
And then I started dabbling in non-league with the Northern Premier. Once I finished the league, I thought, I better do the ones who might get into the league. So in those days, you were talking about your Altrinchams, Yeovils, Ketterings, those sort of teams. And then, really, once I finished the league, I just got the bug.
Yeah, you've still got the bug.
I like non-league. As I say, that Northwich day is probably the day that really convinced me this was a place for me. And I just don't like top division, particularly in this country. It's just all dominated by money and the hassle getting tickets and that. It's, much easier just to stroll up to non-league game 2 minutes before kick-off and pay £2 for your admission and programme. Much better.
Absolutely. But what was it about that Northwich Victoria Day that stood out for you?
Just the whole ambience of it, I suppose you'd call it. It was a lovely afternoon, nice relaxing day, reasonable game. I mean, the old drill field was a nice ground because it had a very nice stand,
Yeah.
And it was just so relaxing. I just thought, this is for me, simple as that.
Well, they say you don't choose your football club chooses you. But in that case, it's non-league's picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, the closest I've got to allegiance to a football club is Burton Albion because I've got 8 shares in them, which I inherited, 8 in about 4 million. So I've clearly got a lot of voting power. But, I mean, they are, in effect, a team with non-league values and, with what shall I call it, non-league financial constraint and responsibility, and that's still playing in the league. They're struggling a bit this year, but they're still punching above their weight. But a very well-run club, and I say they were even when they were in non-league.
Yeah, got non-league ground. I mean, I'd argue we've got a bit of a non-league fan base. Not the loudest, unfortunately, when I've seen them.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a decent ground. Standing terraces that I like. But
yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't get me started on that. It'll be on all night.
Yeah. So I mean, you know what the next question is going to be, but yeah, I'm guessing you do prefer the older grounds to the new builds.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, concrete and plastic do very little for me. You get the odd one, with something different, but I mean, even at non-league level, and now we're talking plastic, not just the fittings, but the pitch as well. You can't beat an old ground. As I say, something like Workington, or I went back to Grimsby the other week, with the old-fashioned stands and, preferably falling to bits and old terracing and so on. Yeah, I mean, I'm not alone in this in groundhopping. I think a lot of people say this. They've got that magic word, character.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's the thing. Yeah. Oh, I mean, particularly Germany, there's still quite a lot left. So you suddenly rack up at a ground there, you don't know what to expect, and you suddenly see all old terracing and whatever, and you go, wow.
Yeah,
Whereas you go to a new ground and say, oh, this looks nice, and that's it. It's not
yeah,
wow or yeah.
yeah. Missed that little bit of
Yeah, well, I
unique,
say character's a word, or
yeah,
charisma, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
charisma. Love that one. Yeah. Um, what's your favourite thing about ground hopping? I know, obviously, the grounds. But what else about ground hopping do you
Well,
love?
I enjoy the football. I enjoy the company, all the friends and the people you meet and can have a natter to. Sometimes you even have a natter to the linesman or the referee or whatever,
Yeah,
in passing. And I also enjoyed the planning. That's one of the things that I'm I won't say famous for, but I'm regarded as the one who does it when we're on our trips and that.
yeah,
I find all the fixtures out and work out, whether you can get from A to B. Doesn't
yeah,
always work. My mate Steve Brown occasionally double checks me because on one famous occasion, I found there's a lovely double in the Czech Republic. The only trouble was the morning game was at a place that had got a similar place name 4 hours away. And of course, I'd got the wrong one. So, yeah, he double checks me on things like that. But yeah, I think that's part of the fun of it, And when you get there, the total uncertainty, you can go and find a non-league ground that, quite frankly, is an absolute pigsty. But still, if they love it and they look, they're proud of it, that's fine. And sometimes you go to an absolute little gem, or you find a club that the owners and the managers and the fans have really put a lot of effort into. Now, it might not be all that much, but it matters to them, and I like that. It's I say it's proper people's football. I mean, I call non-league proper football.
yeah.
I mean, once you get into leagues, it's manufactured in inverted commas.
Manufactured. Yeah. Very fair point, though, you make. Yeah, you see more goals in the lower leagues.
Well, that as well, yeah, yeah. Although I'd still rather have a 2-all than a 4-0. But
Yeah.
yeah, just occasionally a nice 15-0 when you had a couple of 1-0s on a horrible, wet, cold night. It's nice to see them flying in.
Yeah. Just while we're on the subject of new grounds, there's one new ground that I would like to get your opinion on, and it's one that we've all recently been to. One I saw you at the other night, and Hucknall Town. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Uh, Obviously, there's something behind the scenes that's more impressive. But, from my point of view, it's just almost repeating what they've had before. They've got
Yeah,
cover along one side, cover behind one goal, a few seats. Um, the car parking seemed a bit chaotic. So I say you do question. I mean, it might be that the previous site was more valuable, or it might be that they've been able to build better dressing rooms, or it's financially more viable. In terms of running the electrics and all that. But it doesn't seem a vast improvement on the old one. But of course, always with ground hopping, unless you get invited into the inner sanctum, you only really see, a ground from the spectator's point of view.
yeah,
And, the ground graders will always tell you this. A lot of it's what's behind the scenes, the dressing rooms, and all the rest of the infrastructure. But
yeah.
no, a bit disappointed, to be honest, in Hucknall. I think I wasn't alone in that, but I say, it may be perceived as an improvement by the fans. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I personally don't think it was too bad. I just prefer the old one. I just really
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Hucknall Road. I think
yeah.
that's where
Well,
that's how we all feel.
I mean, the old one, it's interesting. The very first time I went there, it was little more than a field. There were Hucknall Colliery Welfare. I saw them in the vase, probably in the 1980s. Yeah, so they built that up quite nicely. But then, of course, I mean, there was all the background of getting ideas above their station and getting financial trouble. But I mean, the new one's been so long in coming. I must admit, I expected something a bit better, but they probably won't let me in through the gate now. I've said that next time.
I think, well, like you said, I think if we'd have gone to a club and they hadn't moved grounds and that was their ground, I don't think many people would criticise it at all. I thought it was a good ground, like you say, but it's just because we've seen Watlow Road and been spoiled by Rotland Road.
Yeah, there's not many clubs. I mean, for the fans' point of view, I think a lot of them would say, yes, we like our new ground better than the old one. The old one was tumbled down and whatever. But from the Groundhoppers' point of view, 9 times out of 10, you always think, well, the old one, again, we're back to that word character, had more character. But, to the average football fan of a club, if it's got nicer, shiny new stands and, whatever, maybe they think it's better.
Yeah.
And we have to expect that.
Yep, absolutely. So, how many grams are you on currently?
I looked that up this morning. 7,656.
7,656. Is that the British record?
I don't think so. No, there's a guy who rejoices in the name of Hoddy. Lives in Crewe. He won't tell people exactly how many grounds he's done, and he's a bit of a recluse these days. But he's probably 1,500, certainly 1,000 ahead of me, I would think.
Wow, 1,000 ahead of you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not as old as me either, but I mean, he was doing it for absolutely years. He'd do silly things like go to Sweden for a month and do 50 games.
Wow.
Yeah, but I say he's legendary, but yeah.
Well, I'm not going to.
I'm probably got the most of the current very active, shall we put it that way?
Yeah.
British Groundhoppers. Yeah, there's a few, several others, 5,000, 6,000, and there's a lot with a better sort of international CV than I've got. Been to a lot more countries than me. I've done mostly Europe, but I mean, some have been, 100 plus countries, whereas I'm on 59. So, I've got a long way to go. Still want Kazakhstan, and I doubt I'm going to get it in my lifetime, Russia now, but we'll see. You never know.
Yeah, you never know, mate. Yeah, quite a few big name teams in Russia. And obviously, to mention the World Cup was there not so long ago as well. There'll be some ones there to see. So, I mean, I think 7,656 is a huge number. I'm not going to ask for your favourite ground, but if you could give us some honourable mentions over the years, what you've really liked.
I think, we've spoken about this before. Everybody asks the same question. You've really got to categorise it probably into the big grounds, where I think my ultimate favourite is the Monumental. I think that's what they call it in Uruguay, the original, staged the original World Cup fight. It's absolutely a huge bowl. If you go to the back of the terrace and you're about 1.5 miles from the pitch, but it's just got that character. It's got a couple of pillars outside with all inscriptions about the first World Cup and so on. And just like that. I mean, the other big ones are Nou Camp and San Siro, and that are obviously fantastic as well. Now, then you go to the sort of middle level, and I think, and this gets mentioned a lot, there's a ground in Germany, an old traditional ground, as we were talking about, with old crumbling terracing, a traditional stand and all that, Westphalia Herne. And the other one, very similar ilk, is Preußen Munster. And there are a lot of grounds like that in Germany, just traditional grounds, gradually crumbling away, but still got the back to that word, character. Yeah. And then if you go to little grounds, well, I mean, it depends. If you want a scenic one, you're talking something like Garra or Blind Rhondda in Wales. The one I personally like is Nanpion in Cornwall, because it's just got so many different features. You can see the China clay workings. It's got what looks like a mini Greek temple sort of thing, and you can stand under that or on top of it. And everywhere you look within the ground, it's somewhere different, And that sort of thing really attracts me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's one I really want to do is Eriskay, which is on in the Ewiston Barrow League in the Outer Hebrides. That is one of FIFA's 10 unique football grounds in the world. But it's quite difficult to plan to get there because sometimes fixtures change in that league and all sorts of things can happen. But it's so small, it hasn't actually got 6-yard boxes. It doesn't meet any sort of official ground whatevers, but they're allowed to play there because of this, unique status with FIFA. And it is fantastic. It's sort of got rocky outcrops all around, almost by the sea. And undulating, I think, is being polite, but that is number one on my hit list without any doubt. Try and get there this coming summer.
Eriskay. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look it up, look at the picture and you'll see why it's attractive. So there's nothing actually there, but it's just the place. Yeah.
Yeah. Blaenau Honda, is it that one? It's called, yeah. Blaenau Honda. Whereabouts in Wales is that one? So I know it. But...
clue with the second half of the name. It's in the Rhondda.
The Rhondda.
In the Rhondda Valley, which is South Wales. The valleys, about 6 or 7 valleys go up from sort of Cardiff, Newport way up and it's up in the valley. I think they've actually stopped playing at the moment because they get some financial trouble. But yeah, it's sort of 15, 20 miles up one of the valleys from Cardiff, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm saying the famous Rhondda Valley, that's famous for its singing, of course, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Garu's been mentioned to me plenty of times. Nampeen's been mentioned to me plenty of times. There's another one in Cornwall I want to mention to you, and that's the Roach FC, the Roach Rock.
Who's that? Sorry.
Roach FC, spelled ROCHE.
Cornwall. Yeah, with the rock. Yeah. Anything like that. I mean, if you're talking in the wider world, Braga in Portugal, that's got a rock face behind it. I mean, even Kevin Druids in Wales. Have you been there?
I was planning to go yesterday before the Flint game, but it went under because of the weather. Frozen.
Yeah, well, so that's got a rock face behind it. Millhead in North Lancashire. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's absolutely loads. Yeah. Scenic grounds. Yeah, they really do something for me. I say, give me a nice little village ground with a bit of scenery.
Yeah.
And I'm away. The football can be total rubbish, but I still enjoy the venue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Ullswater United that I've been to in the Lake District. Beautiful place that is.
Now, when I went there, they were virtually bottom of the league, but yeah,
they won the league when I went.
Lovely ones in the Lake District, yeah. County Mayo, some nice ones in Ireland, yeah.
I think what else I was going to say then, but yeah, I mean, Ullswater won the league when I went, and
yeah,
I thought it was just absolutely glorious. I mean, there's quite a few up there that I'd like to see.
Yeah.
Ambleside, I think it's called.
Really nice as well. But the disappointment is Windermere because it's just in the middle of a housing estate. So,
I mean, to be fair, I mean, there's one place in this country I would like to see more grounds of, and it's ironically the furthest place away, Cornwall.
Where Cornwall? Oh yeah. So nice.
Many down there.
Yeah.
Falmouth, Penzance, St Just, I think that's the closest to Land's End, just for that reason.
Yeah. Well, if you want to do the mainland properly, you have to do St Just, which is the furthest west. Lizard Argyle, which is the furthest south.
Yeah.
Waveney in the Anglian combination, which is the furthest east.
Yeah.
And on the mainland, the furthest north is Pentland United in Dunnet, which is just west of John O'Groats. It beats John O'Groats by about a few hundred yards further north. Yeah.
Pentland United.
So they're the 4 on the mainland, yeah. And then if you spread your wings and go out, well, you've got to go to places to the west of Ireland and all sorts, west of Scotland, yeah.
Yeah. Whereabouts in the west of Ireland would you recommend?
Well, anywhere in County Mayo, really. There's one lovely one called Achill, which is on Achill Island. But I say several of the grounds in Mayo, and also Donegal's, a couple of lovely ones there.
Okay.
Sea Rovers, which is probably the furthest north on the island of Ireland, even though it's in the Republic. That's up by Malin Head, which you probably heard on shipping forecasts and that. And there's also one on an island called Arran Moor. You have to go a little ferry to that, which I managed to do this summer. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So again, I'll go back to 7,656 grounds in your lifetime. How many of those grounds are demolished, no longer with us? If you know,
I
on
daren't
average.
look, quite frankly. I suspect four figures of that lot are actually demolished, no longer with us,
Four
and probably
figures.
another several hundred are no
Yeah.
longer used for what I normally watch, which is adult men's football. You know, they might
Yeah.
be still used for kids' football.
Yeah.
Some of them might have been converted to rugby grounds or something like that, but quite a lot of them will either be just sitting there derelict or now be Tesco's or a housing estate, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's quite a few big names. Upton Park, Griffin Park, Bootham Crescent. I mean, there's even one in London, not far from Queen's Park Rangers, and my good mate Stefan told me about this one. I think White City had a stadium at some point.
Oh yeah, I never got there. Yeah,
Never.
yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
basically a dog track, I understand, but QPR played
Greyhound,
there.
yeah.
I missed that, and the other one I missed that was stage league football was Odsall in Bradford. You know, the big rugby league one. Apparently, that was huge and was fantastic. But in those days, I wasn't going that far afield, so you know, I missed that one. I'm afraid. Yeah.
Out of all the demolished ones that you visited, did you have a favourite demolished ground at all, or any
Well,
mentions?
probably Derby, because that was the very first one I did, the baseball ground. I mean, that
Yeah.
was quite quirky.
Yeah.
I used to like the old Chesterfield as well. That was a proper football ground.
Saltergate, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and if you're going abroad, probably something like Schalke, because the old curve there was absolutely fantastic, really
Wow.
huge, you know. And
Yeah.
we had the good luck to get tickets right, not on the curb, but right by the side of it. So, you know, we could get the full atmosphere of that. Because
Yeah.
at modern all-seater grounds, you don't get the same atmosphere as when you've got sort of 15, 20,000 fans all standing up and jumping up and down and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You know, as I said to you, there's so many, you know, difficult to work out which to say, but I think they're probably three of them. I mean the old Burton Albion as well. That was
yeah.
a nice ground, although it wasn't the world's best for watching from various sides of it. You know, you
Yeah.
got in the wrong place, but yeah. And I mean they are now using it again. The one I did like to go to was the Olympic Stadium in Stockholm,
Okay.
but there is a low level team now using it again. That is
Yeah.
a fantastic stadium, but not brilliant for watching football. So, you know.
Yeah. Did you ever go to the old because there's one club that are quite low down that used to be high up, a bit like Working, well, not obviously as high as Workington, but what's the city? Used to have an
Yes,
old ground.
yes, that was a nice ground. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a shame they lost that. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, funny enough, I was having a look when they originally created the Alliance Premier League, which is now the National League. I
Yeah.
was looking at the teams who were in that then, and there's about half a dozen who you would have said at the time, well, they're the giants, they're the ones looking to press to go into the Football League. And they're way down now. You're talking Worcester City, Stafford Rangers,
Yep.
Nuneaton Borough. Yeah, all teams like that. Enfield, you know, they were
Yep.
all. And the ones that sort of overtaken them and gone into the league are the Crawleys and the Stevenages, I suppose the Burtons of this world, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Harrogate Town. Yeah.
Yeah, Harrogate Town. Yeah, although they look like they're struggling again. But yeah, that was a surprise. They went up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
That's good
don't
when
think
they
there's a
blooming
big
play
amount of
Mansfield,
money
though, do they?
behind them or anything. But I mean, only one guaranteed promotion place plus a playoff. I mean, this year, you look at the top of the National League and there's 3 teams, all of which are really traditional league clubs, and they all really should go back up. But of course they can't because there's only 2 places. And 9 times out of 10, the one that finished second doesn't win the playoffs.
No.
So, but it's going to be a hell of a fight between Wrexham and Notts County unless Chesterfield get the finger out. I think they're going to finish third, but they all look like good teams on paper.
Absolutely. I think to be fair, both teams would probably kick on. I don't think they'd be fighting relegation. County and Wrexham, that is. I don't think Chesterfield would either, to be fair, but you never know, do you? And
no.
like I say, the only team that I can think of in recent times that finished second and went up was Salford City.
Yeah.
I can't think of any others.
The interesting thing is, the statistic is 1 or 2 have gone back down again, but nobody's gone straight back down to the National League the year after they've gone up.
Yeah.
That was a statistic I heard. That testifies something. I'm not quite sure what, but it's basically the strength of the National League. I mean, it's effectively Division 5, and it's about time they recognised it and had, 2 or 3 automatic promotion places. But there's a whisper that as getting more money out of the Premier League, the EFL might actually look at that. But it's turkeys voting for Christmas, of course, so we'll see when it happens. But I mean, you get the press, and I think to some extent the clubs themselves, when they get relegated out of the Football League, they think it's the end of the world. And then when they actually get there, the fans quite enjoy it because they're going to different grounds. Yeah. And even though it's only one level, and these days it's pretty professional, there's just the feel of non-leagues different. And I think a lot of the fans enjoy and embrace it. And sometimes the clubs have used it as a springboard to revive and, get back to sensible things. I mean, somebody like Scunthorpe, it looks like they've got to go a long way back to do that. But I mean, you look over the years, somebody like Lincoln, when they were in the National League or whatever it was called in those days, the conference, I think, probably, and Doncaster, there's all sorts of teams like that. They've gone
York
quite
City.
a way back up from Bristol Rovers,
yep.
from looking devastated, having to go down.
Yep, there's always a way back. Not the end of the world. Yeah, Oxford happened to them. Our good friend Lawrence was telling me that story.
yeah.
Happened. So let's talk about fans. Over your travels, are there any fan bases that you liked an awful lot of?
I think the most impressive was Besiktas in Turkey. Wow. Complete surprise, as is normally our wont, A, because getting a picture, and B, because it's fairly safe. That sort of country, we tend to buy tickets in the stand opposite the main stand. And we got tickets for the middle of the stand opposite the main stand. And that is where they've hollowed the seats out and where the ultras go. And we were slap bang in the middle of them. Now, there were a couple of Turkish lads there who lived in Kilburn, but they were back home for a couple of weeks. And they said, don't worry about it. Once they realise you're no harm to them, they'll just carry on around you. And the atmosphere was absolutely fantastic. Irrespective of what was going on the field, they stopped for about 5 minutes at half time, and that was it. And later we saw them away for a midweek night match in Ankara, which is 4 hours away on the train. And they took about 10,000 there.
Wow.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I say the old Schalke ones at the on the curve as well. Yeah. And,
wow.
I mean, Argentina was different again. I mean, it was very ritual there, but I mean, even the little grounds, they had the, I can't think what they call them now, but the equivalent of the ultras anyway. And they, even little grounds with about 150 crowd, they had these sort of streamers go down amongst the fans, sort of from the top down to the bottom. And, I say, irrespective of what was on the pitch again, I mean, they had the same old chants and they were carrying on through the whole game. But, I mean, they were something else.
Argentina, it's Boca Juniors is my dream ground.
That's yeah, I managed to get there, and I managed to do River Plate and racing on the same day.
Wow.
Just going between the two by public transport. So that was tremendous. Yeah.
That's a double and a half, that is,
Yeah,
as far as
yeah.
doubles
The
go.
only regret I had that trip, I didn't get the Maracana in because they closed it for about 3 weeks. There was a problem with the access gates. I think what you call QR codes these days. There were about
Yeah.
18 out of 100 and odd gates working. So either the provincial or the national council, in conjunction with the football authorities, closed it for about 3 weeks just when I was there. So that is now number 2 on my hit list after Erris Gate.
Maracana. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and I always quote, because there was one guy who used to say to me, "Oh, you watch all sorts of old rubbish and that." I say, "Well, all I would tell you is I give you the scope of my ground hopping. Boca Juniors in Argentina and Boca Seniors in the North Devon League."
There's
And
actually a Boca Seniors.
yeah, they played just at basically a pitch at a
Yeah.
tennis centre, actually. Yeah, Boca Juniors and Boca Seniors. Yeah, and that's my sort of range. Yeah.
I thought it was just a popular five-a-side team name. That I didn't know there actually was
No,
a
no,
team.
there's a team in North Devon. Yeah, they're quite successful as well. Yeah,
They're
obviously
playing
they live.
Boscastle, is it?
Yeah.
Is it short for Boscastle, Boca in North Devon, by any chance?
No, 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 no. They're
No.
playing Barnstaple. No, I
Okay.
think they just copied Boca Juniors. Oh,
Oh,
well, we'll be Boca Seniors, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, you do get some good imitation names. Yeah.
definitely.
Best
Yeah.
I heard was at Northumberland University, the dental department in their internal league, their team was called Borussia Teeth. That is brilliant.
Borussia Teeth, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard that one before as well. Fantastic, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think there might have been a few Wigan fans about 10 years ago, or a bit, who were big drinkers, like to call themselves Roddy Jaeger bombs,
yeah,
if you know what I
yeah.
mean. I just made that one up, but yeah, there's one. Um, what about the worst fans you may have come across over your time, if any?
Newcastle, without any doubt. You
Newcastle
know,
United.
I went to the Newcastle Forest game in, I think it was 74, when Forest were doing really well. I mean, the older people will remember Duncan McKenzie was running riot. They had a really good young team. They were 3-1 up at Newcastle, and I think it was the 5th round of the Cup. And the fans invaded the pitch, and it was frightening. It really
Yeah,
was. And the referee restarted the game, and the young lads playing for Forest, they were absolutely scared to, and it's sort of rude then, scared to death. And Newcastle ended up winning 4-3. Now, the FA ordered a replay,
yeah,
but no real sanction against Newcastle at all. That was the start of all the pitch invasions. And, you know, like a lot of the fans of the big clubs, they feel, you know, I mean, at the moment, they're doing quite well, but they feel this is an entitlement. We're a big club. We're entitled to do well. You know, everybody says, oh, they're wonderful fans. Not to me, I'm afraid. No, you know, and that's one of the grounds that's gone the longest time and I've not been back to. That and Exeter, I think, are the
Mhm.
ones I've only been once, and that dates back to 74, something like that.
Wow.
I've just
How
not
about-
been back. I did go back to Swindon after 52 years. I went the last Christmas, no, the Christmas before. And
Yeah,
yeah, again, I seem to make this a habit. I got a 0-0.
typical. But I mean,
Yeah,
Exeter's still well within its roots. Still, for me, the best stand in the football league. That one behind the goal,
yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah, I will go back just when it, you know, when it suits. Yeah,
When the
yeah.
time's right, yeah,
Like it'll fit. I'll be down there for a weekend and they'll have an evening kick-off or something, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So,
think that, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
obviously, I say worst fans again. I mean, I just don't like anything about the club, but the fans are probably the worst. Manchester United, I just can't stick them. You know, I've tried Bostik, I've tried super glue, I just can't stick them.
yeah, you have
And
to
the
deal with some
Manchester
of the
City
rubbish.
fans are beginning to go that way. You know, they expect to win and,
Yeah,
you know, very defensive about the money. Yeah, I think you all know who I'm talking about in particular.
Yeah.
No names.
So 59 countries that you've watched football in. Any countries that stand out more from the rest? And I've got an idea what you're going to say.
Have you? Oh, I haven't.
Yeah, it's one that a lot of people say. People always say Germany.
Well, Argentina, I suppose. Then, yeah. Is that the right answer?
It's always the
Germany.
right answer is Argentina.
Yeah, I mean Argentina was something completely different. I like the match experience Germany, particularly sort of second, third, fourth, fifth levels. I like non-league in Netherlands, the amateurs, because again, it's a bit like our non-league. When I first started watching, it's a bit formulaic. They've all got a stand, they've all got a social club. Most of them do a program, but again, it's a relaxed atmosphere, and I just enjoy those games. Yeah. So, but I mean, lately I've done a lot in the sort of Eastern Europe, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria, I like as well, just for the scenery as well, if nothing else.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wouldn't say there's one absolutely stands out. They've all got different attributes. Is that the word? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I'm
but I
using
mean,
big words tonight. I told you I must have swallowed the dictionary.
but I mean, it's just from people we've had on this show, Germany
Yeah,
is very very popular. You like
yeah, yeah.
our good
Well,
friends.
yeah.
Yeah,
Particularly, I mean, they're very welcoming, and the
yeah,
fans they seem to get to know very quickly. Oh, we've got some English here, and they start talking to you straight away. I mean, that's true in almost any country. The smaller ones, what on earth are you doing here? Why are you watching us when you've got the Premier League?
yeah.
Well, in my case, I'm watching you because we've got the Premier League.
But yeah. So Eriskay, the Maracanã. Is there any other grounds that are on your hit list still?
I don't think specifically. Well, there's lots and lots. Obviously, I'd like to do, but I
Yeah.
think number 3 is actually to do a game on Christmas Day, which
Ooh,
I've never
okay.
done. Just a bit too young to, at the time when they used to play in England. They always play a cup final in Northern Ireland unless it falls on a Sunday. They always play the Steel and Sons Cup final, which is sort of the sort of equivalent of FA Vars for just one half of Northern Ireland. They always play that on Christmas morning at Crusaders ground, but of course I've been there, so I'd like to go to a new one. Now this year I did price Turkey, but I nearly had a baby when I saw the flight times. So if I'm going to do something like that, I've got to plan it well in advance. Same with Israel. You think, oh, that's a Jewish country. They won't be bothered about Christmas, but they are because you get a lot of Christians go over there at Christmas. And again, the flight times and that flight prices are horrendous. So got to really get that well planned. But I think that's probably next on the list,
Watch a game on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
I've done Christmas Eve, and that might give you a clue where I went. It was last Christmas Eve, funnily enough, not too far from here. At a new 3G cage, Dinnington.
Yeah.
Was at that game.
That's
a Christmas Eve I've done.
I was in South Wales Christmas Eve. Yeah, I was going to Cornwall, but pretty well everything was off. So yeah.
Yeah. Any other bucket list things? Christmas Day watch? Any other sort of things?
Well, I still want to get Kazakhstan done
Kazakhstan,
and Russia if I can, but I say the present political climate makes that somewhat difficult. Yeah, and probably have a dabble at a few, some other countries on the other continents, maybe something like Morocco or something like that. Yeah, I don't. I mean, some of them go to the African Nations Cup finals. Well, I went in Egypt because my dad was in Cairo just after the war. He spoke a lot about that. So I went there, but I'm not sure I fancy the sub-Saharan ones, your Senegals or your Togos or whatever, Not really sure I fancy those. But the one that's never interested me is the US, funnily enough.
Okay. What is it about the USA that you don't particularly like? Then?
I mean, well, it's not I don't particularly like it. It's just that it's not particularly, high up on the, if I was going over that way, I'd probably go somewhere like Mexico, which is far more a traditional football country. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'd
mean,
like to go back to Australia and New Zealand because I've been once, and that was partly tourism, partly football, but particularly enjoying New Zealand. But,
yeah,
yeah.
fair point. I mean,
the football game there, but there we go.
Yeah, I mean, the traditional stadium bowl that we get in this country from new grounds is an American thing. They're almost like Americanized stadiums, which again is a fair point, I suppose.
Well, we hardly get bowls, or we get 4 square boxes, of course, which is the other stadium design. I mean, there are a few who've got a bit of character. I mean, as a ground, I like the Tottenham one. I didn't like the match day experience of getting there by public transport, and then nobody knew where my seat was, and things like that. But that's a bit better than some of the new ones. But I say, give me an old traditional one any day.
Yeah. So on that note, we'll finish with the last question, Dave. If you could sum up football for us in 3 words, what would it be?
Right. Well, I've thought about this before, and since you told me you were going to ask it, I don't think you can beat what the now late great Pele said, the beautiful game. I think that sums it up. The game itself, the surroundings of it, the fans, the atmosphere, the grounds, everything. The beautiful game.
The beautiful game indeed.
Yeah.
And Dave, thanks a million for coming on, mate. Season 4 is well up and running.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
And I hope to see you again at grounds
wherever. Keep bumping into at the most unexpected places, don't I?
Not to mention a certain place in Wales.
Predictable, but Flint certainly wasn't. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, for the people watching, bumped into him yesterday in Flint, of all places, in Flintshire, Wales, on that cold. Well, just one last question, actually.
The sort of evening kickoffs, if I can, if I can fit something around them, gives me an extra game,
Just before we finish it up,
I looked it up. It's 26 years since I've been to Flint, so
wow,
it's like going to the ground almost.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, but what is that? The coldest ground you've ever been to?
No, Hansa Rostock -10.
Oh, Christ. Hansa Rostock, I won't bother asking about Garforth or maybe even Arbroath.
I think it was December we went, and the next morning we had a game called off on an artificial pitch because there were puddles of water and they'd frozen on this artificial pitch. Yeah, amazing.
Wow. Unreal. But no, Dave, it's been great to have you on, mate, and I'm sure I'll see you somewhere again soon.
Yeah, well, don't forget the advice. If you do 200 a year, eventually you'll catch my number up.
Yeah.
I'll be long gone, but there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been the FANA Fan Podcast, and we will see you next time.